Okay, let's get going.
Let's get grooving.
Guys, are you going to be in control of this, bro?
Yeah.
Go, cool. Oh, Ollie, stealing my seat here, bro. You get
Are
this
we
one,
on?
bro? You can exit that also. I reckon that's just like something called a watch party. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Ollie, stealing my seat here, bro. Okay.
You should exit this.
Yeah, I reckon. Just show it on my page. Let's get going.
Teach you about some surf
And watch party. Ollie, boy. Do another lesson? Yeah, sure, bro. That was neat. Everyone thinks we just hear on our phones and we're actually doing some things. Not really. Kind of getting there, we're kind of making progress. I think this is the last piece of the puzzle. Okay. Let's go out there. There we go. Better scroll down there. Ahoy! How's it looking, buddy? You comfy there, man?
Sure, man. I'm very stoked. It's the most funny.
Okay, Mr. Allsticks, eh? Let me get my laptop. My coffee. Something needs to.
I'm sipping here, bro. Yeah, stay there. I'm super.
Awareness. There we go, guys. Cool. Cool. Who we got here? Let's say hello to some friends. Karen. Hi, Karen. David. Hi, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Sia. How's it, my friend? Ali. Hi, Dave. Sheila. Hi, Sheila. Starling. Cool.
Stay on. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Always in tune.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned, bro.
It's gonna be fun.
Cool, guys. This is a great evening for me and my friends Brandon and Carl and Ollie here. It's an honor for me to be talking to friends of Love Foundation, a great little community, or let's call it family, that's come together and done some fun things, and it's really nice to be here talking with whoever's out there. From Cape Town to Global, the Love Foundation's also in Berlin, in Amsterdam, in Tel Aviv. It's a great bunch of people. Check them out. It's really nice to be connected to them and stoked to be here. So thanks a lot to those out there, David and Philippe, Monsieur Mambo, respect. Thank you guys. Otherwise, thanks to JMO. These are some really nice beers. We're actually not getting paid or anything to do this. This is just a great beer and I really suggest it. 100% eco-friendly for the earth, for you, for our children, for everyone, you know.
And it tastes good.
And it tastes really good.
And a man doing what he loves, guys? Surfing and looking after the ocean when he does what he loves.
There we go. Big time respect for that. And yeah, I think it's just great to be here and hope we can share some insights on what we've learned about surfing and the ocean and through our experience of being out there in such a magical, unpredictable place, I guess. And yeah, let's learn and talk together. Please feel free to comment anything in the section below and to invite friends to engage in the discussion. We've got Daza here on answering the questions, so feel free to drop them in the comment section. And apologies, we're a bit late, but so it goes. The waves are coming.
Yeah. Seth has arrived, guys.
Cool. It's a goodie. And just a little insight. This is a cool little session we did last week, I think, in Newtonberg. We had a cute little log session. Geordie on the cam, Daza, Tasman also. So that was some cool times just to share the waves and rides and vibes of the ocean, just to be out there and yeah, stoked, fully epic. So hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know what you think.
Craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah, he shreds a log too.
Yeah, it's a large game. It's on.
Yeah, cool to see.
Cool to see everyone out there on all sorts of craft, longboard to shortboard to even those foilers flying around.
Half a foot to 10 foot, guys.
Like Musenberg.
Cool. So, to begin, where did your surfing journey begin? Brando, how did your surf journey begin?
Well, I saw this guy surfing probably.
This is Brandon's brother, Kyle, just to let those know who don't.
So yeah, I don't know, just brought up into, surfing family, I would say. Father surf, saw my brother surfing.
Influenced immediately.
Yeah, I would say my father big time.
Big influence, the father.
Yeah, I remember. My dad also used to take me out there surfing from Big Bay to like even Little River just behind the boat. Little wind swells. This guy was passing the river to Jeffreys Bay eventually.
Yeah.
Crying.
Sure, and they saw our love for it, and they totally
just got so involved.
Yeah.
And you sit there, you're so scared. You wipe into the rocks. Urchins crying, like you traumatized. Like one bad experience, and it can like completely condition you to like be scared of that moment again. I was so scared of rocks since like one time at J Bay when I got so skunked that I literally saw a section to jump over the rocks, was walking out, and then literally just missed time. My jump so bad, I got caught onto the rocks. Made the jump, of course, and then started paddling. Set came, and I ended up over the rocks, walking in like traumatized.
Who was there to rescue you?
Pops always.
Always got an eye, eh?
Always got an eye. Yeah.
Nice, bro.
But it was a scary experience, and since that, I was scared of rocks for a long time and reef. Just like completely conditioned by thinking it's such a scary thing, like such a hectic thing, and then you start to understand that you can, I guess, control it. It helps a bit.
Yeah, man. How did your journey begin, Asian?
Yeah, I was fortunate to have my dad, Anton, kind of bring me into the sea from a young age. He was an ocean man, shaper, craftsman of everything, and it was his passion to share the ocean with me, I think. And yeah, he from I think I was 5 years old, 4 years old maybe there. Put me on a board. I remember it was still a little river. And there was these little wind swells breaking on the inside, and we'd just go surfing on these little swells.
Ah, that's cool.
I'd kind of be standing on the board already, and you just push me, you know, you just like end up on the sand on the beach, like don't even have to touch the water, you just like back and forth.
Yeah, we just spent days on the beach, bodyboarding in the start, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, there's little foamies with the grandma even, I would think, while my dad was surfing.
Yeah.
And then it would like, my dad would come in, bring the board, view on the foamies, you know, and then it just developed like into going further out, and next thing you knew, you know, I think also going to J-Bay somewhere special
Surfing
like that.
real waves. And
Yeah, like even with his diving flippers, like he was a little kid, like paddling you out, pushing you on waves, body surfing back to paddle you back out, and like just pushing you, like probably dropping in on a few O's, but still getting bumps.
I remember I still dropped in on Joel Parker once at Supers. My dad was like, just go, and I went, and I don't think he was so stoked, so sorry, but
True, guys. Sharing is caring, eh?
sharing is caring, exactly.
Man, but what a blessing to grow up close to the ocean
And
as
it's good
well.
to have guidance of a teacher too. I think that helps a lot in surfing, just to have someone, or to, for us at least, have someone looking after us when we're growing up, seeing, having different eyes.
It
And
becomes your role model almost, eh?
Exactly. And I think, like, for me at least, and I agree with Brenda in this way too, I think that being able to share that with others now is such a fortunate thing in my life at least, to see their growth from fear to trust in the sea and to progress in their surfing experience. It's bloody epic. From ladies to kids to men to dogs even. Dogs catching some bombs out there too. And really fortunate to have this sort of lifestyle and to be able to share the ocean, to share this
call the ocean home, eh?
and to call it I guess, work. I pay rent there in my fatigueness when I get home, and there's some pounding days out there where we just completely broken afterwards for 3 or 4 lessons and you pop a snooker.
Yeah,
So,
the ocean is tolling, eh?
Really are blessed to have that as a lifestyle, religion, way of thinking. I believe surfing to be way of life, exactly. And
by the ocean.
it was actually funny because remember when Daz and I were walking with a friend of ours, David, and it's 1st of January 2020. It's a new life, it's the new year, 2019's gone, it's the new decade, let's go, yalla. And I asked David, and I was like, David, bro, what do you think about surfers? David's this guy from Josie, and for us in Cape Town, Josie is like such a far-fetched place. You know, you grow up thinking that it's like this concrete jungle, literally like.
No, I never.
She's being a surfer. You think, what can those guys do there for fun?
What do you do there? But in hindsight, I was there last year, and it's actually such an epic place. I mean, you got the bush, literally out reaching distance from your doorstep, and you can go check animals, and that's a whole other world out there. And also, the city is so social. It's such an African culture. Cape Town, I find, it's a colonized state in a way. It's such a small in the niche, and Johannesburg was community and open. Beautiful feeling. You know, you could be out there with anyone on the side of the road, and it's Ayoba.
Yeah, nice.
Of course, every place has its negatives and positives, I guess, at the end of the day. Anyways, my friend David said to me, I said, after all of that, I said, David, what do you think about surfers? And he said, Shane, if you can ride the waves of the ocean, you can ride the waves of the universe. And I took that. For me, that just like, it understood something bigger than what there was for me. And,
same. It resonated. I've never met this guy. Went on like a magical hike and so many waterfalls, and he said this, and it was just like, what? That was amazing. What he just said, it was an enjoyable day.
It just made sense for me in a way. It's like, understanding that it's not onshore or offshore every day. It changes. It's consistently variable. Life changes. There's different waves to catch every single day. There's different waves to catch in the ocean every single day. And when you can understand that and respect it,
just go with the ebbs and flows.
Just go with it. You know that there's going to be more. There's abundance. There's more to come.
Life's going to throw you a few dampers. couple of onshore days.
Definitely gonna hit
Sure,
the reef
but
once or
those-
twice. So
Yeah, but those nice, perfect days, you know, they're going to be totally
they
worth
make
it.
they make everything else worth
And
it.
they're going to keep you going for another
Keep
day.
you going. Exactly, completely. And respect to all the surfers out there and wood surfers and anyone riding, I guess, part of nature and using it for a lifestyle.
Sharing the stoke also.
Sharing the stoke. Exactly.
Staying stoked.
Staying stoked.
Literally.
Yeah.
Shout out all the way to you guys.
Good stuff, everyone.
Keep it up. Keep it up.
I think from here we start talking a bit more about waves, understanding our perspective on it, what we've learned, I guess, literally our opinions on how we believe waves, where they come from, how they arrive at our coastline, and just getting a deeper, I guess, perspective on, perspective on how waves work. I think there's maybe some more beginner people here, maybe there's some more advanced. If you're advanced, please feel free to share what you know. Also, it's cool to hear and to understand what you think. This is, of course, our perspective, and yeah, we're here to share it with anyone who takes it.
Enjoy it.
Enjoy it. So waves, of course, these are these things arriving at our beach for us to surf. They come in so many different shapes and sizes and different pulses and different waves of life, different waves of ocean. And I think it's quite interesting to know where these waves come from and how they arrive at our coastline.
Yeah, waves are beautiful.
So guys, like, as you can see pretty much down at the bottom there, that big purpley pinky blob is a storm. And when we have a storm, we have a lot of wind. And when we have a lot of wind, it creates waves. And over a period, these waves come towards our land from far to sea, or sometimes closer, sometimes further. And that will also depend on what type of waves we're getting, but that's later on. So,
how big the storm is.
And to
yeah,
understand that these waves are formed by wind, like far to sea, deep in the Atlantic, the wind will kind of blow over surface area. I think you call it the fetch.
fetch indeed.
And then that will sort of, start forming momentum. These ripples will form, they'll start to roll, but ripples will become ripples. They'll
Get
start
bigger and
making bigger ripples and form into swell, and then the swell will obviously gain momentum. And as we can see in the video, it starts traveling toward the coastline, and starts traveling. The further it travels, the more time it obviously has to kind of structure and organize itself. And then to arrive at our coastline, of course, there's waves for us to surf. And we can see in this video how the swell is kind of pulsing through the Cape Town here, the lighter colors being smaller waves, these deeper colors being bigger waves, technically in terms of swell.
Stronger wind, guys. Stronger wind, bigger waves,
Bigger
eh?
wind, exactly. And from the further away, the more swell we're going to get at our local, I guess.
The cleaner, the more perfect lines we're going to get. Essentially, guys, waves are coming from a storm.
Yeah.
So, without a storm, we're not going to have like bigger waves. We're going to have mostly small, relaxed waves, calm waves, and then when the storm comes, we're going to have the bigger waves, and that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And obviously, with the wind as well, it's going to affect our waves a lot. So, like you guys saw out there today, if you managed to get a glimpse of the ocean, just before the storm came, lots of wind, really messy ocean, at least on the west coast, and not much structure to the waves or anything, but big swell. Big swell.
Exactly. So waves, and yeah, of course, they're going to arrive at our coastline, and they're going to come in different sizes, of course, different shapes, different forms, different directions, even depending on your coastline, of course. And for some who haven't really had the experience of experiencing different wave sizes, of course, there's big waves and there's small waves, but technically, I think they refer to wave sizes being from the ocean surface to the top of the lip.
Yeah.
And we'll normally use this in the unit of measurement of feet. Meters in some countries, I think in Europe they say meters, and at the end of the day people say 6 foot, 8 foot, 4 foot, 3 foot, and I think that's depending completely on the surfer and where you've come from to understand that this is a 4 foot wave. In Cape Town, 4 foot waves are like head high waves in a way. In Hawaii, 4 foot waves are double head high waves. In Europe, 4 foot waves So in Europe, 4-foot waves are like double overhead, and in Hawaii they say like 2 foot is literally like 6 foot. So it depends completely where you're coming from, and I think like for me, I saw many people like so obsessed with the biggest foot wave you can surf.
Yeah.
Where it's like it could be 10 foot, it could be 8 foot, but like at the end of the day, it's what you're riding, whatever it is. It's head high, it's hip high, it's double head high. You know, let's talk about it, not just measurement. I think it's hard to understand.
Yeah, I think essentially like wave size, good to know your limits, you know, like what kind of wave size you like. It could be 50 foot, it could be 0.5 foot, you know. But so looking at the wave and saying, okay, cool, I call that 2 foot. I like 2 foot, cool. But I don't like 6 foot. So when you see it like that and you can compare it, you know for sure, cool, that's not for me. So it is good to understand wave size, but totally like Shane says, you know, have your limit, you know what wave size is good for you, you know.
Yeah, everyone's own experience, I think, in surfing will like determine how they like gauge the waves and determine the size, you know.
Yeah.
It's like for some people like that might be on that image like a 3-foot wave, but for some it might be like a 4-foot, 5-foot wave, just because they find it more difficult to surf or something.
Exactly.
So
wave size has nothing to do with how good or bad the surfer is.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not at all though. Yeah, it's just a fallacy, it's just a name. It's a human-made invention, wave size. It's just everywhere it's coming.
Oh, Devlin Tyler Quinn. How's it, Davey?
Hi, Dev.
Oh, my Dev.
Big shock of a Dev. 3 shots.
Yeah. Yes.
Miss you.
Hope you're doing good.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoying life. So
Epic. Let's move on, eh?
Cool.
Ooh. Let's see, look at that one, eh?
that's the goal, eh, this year. Skeleton. Yeah.
Powerful, heavy, thick wave.
Yeah.
Hollow.
Yeah. Serious.
Hard
Moving at a
crashing.
lot of speed. You know.
Speed, literally jacking, bang. I hear that there's. How deep is it to the bank there? You know, I think it's such a
shallow.
The coastal line goes from deep to shallow so quick that wave just literally hits the sand at such a speed with no like slowing down of momentum. Whereas like here at Doodles, I think our continental shelf goes out like 2 or 3 Ks.
Yeah.
And the swell can hit that shelf and kind of slowly then break at our coast. Where there it's no interruption, just some bang.
Bang. Yeah. Just into like, I don't know, like maybe 3 meters depth, not even. Hip deep 2 meters.
Yeah, what Shane is saying there, guys, is like wave power is gonna be determined by like how shallow your ocean floor is, you know? If a wave is coming from very deep water and then all of a sudden it encounters like a very shallow surface, well, your wave's probably gonna shoot up very high because there's a lot of energy. So that wave is gonna be quite big. So when you were saying that there's a long continental shelf out of Doodles here, that means that is a gradual slope, you know, so that the waves coming from deep to less deep, and then shallow eventually. But for example, in Skeleton Bay, it's going to come from deep and then shallow. And that's just going to push that wave very high in a very quick moment and create that hollowness as well.
Would you say that like Skeleton Bay is then more powerful and like so therefore it's like a hollow wave, and then what would you call the more gentle wave, like a spilling wave or like
big
pop, like just rolling?
A rolling wave, you know?
A rolling or spilling
gentle
wave.
Rolling, spilling wave, definitely.
You can still get the odd, you know, nice little, you know, but it doesn't have as much power maybe.
Exactly.
It'll still like have that hollow effect and like bowl out, but won't have as much power.
And these waves will be much more calmer to paddle. You will see the swell coming and the swell will give you time to get into it and then gradually break. Whereas if you go to that top wave at Skeleton Bay, sure, you're going to see the swell coming and then all of a sudden that swell is going to shoot up. So you're going to have to paddle into that wave in a very short period of time, you know? So it's a different type of surfing, that's for sure.
Exactly.
So yeah, wave power and shape is also something that you're gonna have to start to be judging, which is your preference, you know? Do you prefer hollow waves? Or do you prefer rolling, spilling waves, for example? Or in between even, you know?
Both. I think it's
Some
great to
hollow,
ride
some
all waves,
spilling, yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah, for sure, and it just depends what you feel like eating within the.
Yeah.
Like if you want to ride a log at a spilling wave, that's completely cool. If you want to ride your little time bomb at skeleton and get the barrel of life or the wipe of life, then that's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about surfing. I think that there's all types of surfers out
Yeah.
there,
Definitely.
and
Trying to
find your own.
anything.
Find your own. Whatever you feel like surfing, that's what you surf. You know?
Find your wave of life, eh?
There we go. Simple as that.
Sure, nice photo on the bottom as well.
That was in Portugal. Taken by Guru, a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guru, for this amazing photo. Yeah, and the top one by our good friend Geordie Masters.
Yeah.
Making some epic photos and just got a great eye for, I think, photography, and yeah, great guy all around.
Yeah, so I think we should just conclude saying, like, guys, wave power and shape, you know, like we get hollow waves, we get gentle waves, you get in between waves. Definitely determined by what's going on in the ocean floor underneath you, as well as the swell size that's coming towards you.
For sure.
And direction, a lot of things, you know, but most importantly, knowing which one you prefer, you know.
For sure.
Don't want to put yourself into Skeleton Bay
if you don't want that.
Yeah, you know, if you're
Don't
into
just be
riding a log.
sheepish. And it's funny enough you said that.
And the same saying as well, if you want to ride a time bomb, you don't really want to be putting yourself on 1 foot. Musenberg.
Completely same.
Not going to have fun.
Choose the right board for the right wave. Don't fool yourself going to Musenberg or Doodles on a 1 foot onshore day with your shortboard and think you're going to get the same experience surfing Jeffreys Bay, perfect 4 foot running point break. Even surfing from a squash tail to a swallow tail, from a fish board to a short board to a long board, they all have different strengths and weaknesses, I guess. Yeah, and next up, let's think about some wave speed and direction, because, like, I think wave choice comes into this, and understanding for wave speed in particular is like, don't paddle for a closeout if you're not, well, watch the wave that you're going to paddle for. I see often many people just paddling for complete closeout, head down to the beach, not really aware to how this wave is arriving to them, which direction it's actually going, and tuning in, understanding that this is something coming from far away, far to sea. It's arriving to you, completely unpredictable. You need to adapt to it. You can't just think, cool, wave's here, it's my wave, it's my time to shine, I'm going to catch this one, I'm going to the beach. Boom, paddling. I'm paddling. I got this. Bang, smashes on your head.
Oh, Ali.
Oh, sorry, bro, you just disturbed us. No problem. Next time, brother.
Epic, more comfortability.
Arrogance.
Oh, you're taking up lots of space.
Yeah, so I mean, like
Wave
wave
choice.
speed, wave direction. Well, I mean, as Shane was saying there, guys, you know, like when you're going for a surf, take a little bit of time, you know, suss out the conditions, what's going on in front of you, you know. Check, okay, cool, there's lots of lefts breaking here, or maybe there's a lot of closeouts here, you know, I have to really take my time to choose the right wave, you know.
Yeah.
And when you start understanding the wave speed, it's going to help you a lot, you know, because that's going to be like determining which waves you are wanting to go for. And if it's in your capability as well, you know. As you can see at the top there, we have a famous, very famous point break.
Very famous.
Called Jeffreys Bay.
Super tubos.
Yeah, super tubes, you know, and which means that it's hollow, but also a fast wave at the same time, you know. So,
Yeah.
not going to be an easy wave to surf, you know, because you're going to have to be going boom, boom, boom.
Exactly.
But then you go down another point break, very good point break we have at the bottom there. I think that's Brandon doing.
That's Brenda.
Oh, what a beautiful photo, eh?
Yeah, that's Yalan's eh? Special left-hand point break, I would say too. I mean, yeah, it's also just moving quite quickly, you know. Can be fast at times compared to those spilling waves. But I mean, when you get those waves, you it's special. You're moving at a certain you're moving with that flow so fast. That's like.
And you just have to sometimes at the airlines just have to get down the line.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time doing too many turns, maybe two or three turns in the bowl. But for me on my backhand, I find I'm just like trying to just stay in that pocket line, you know, just like stay in there. Maybe if it opens up, go for a turn. But it's different waves at different speeds and different directions too. Of course, you get right-handers at J-Bay, but you get some which are breaking away from the reef and some which are breaking into the reef. And I think at like Chopu and like those bigger waves and pipeline, even when they're breaking into the reef, that's when they're really going to horseshoe like that and make that fat barrel section or section to turn on, whatever you feel like doing. So there's such, I think it can go into such fine quarters of that wave being completely a slightly different direction, missing that reef break. And I think in Cape Town things are very unpredictable. It's not like in Indo or I think like some of the eastern countries where it just breaks on the spot every time. Yeah, it's unpredictable. Every wave has a new direction, every different speed. You might have to race twice or 3 times to get around a section. And understanding that I think helps with going further in surfing.
Yeah,
just knowing where this wave is coming, where it's going, tuning into it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, understanding wave speed and direction is absolutely crucial to surfing, and also to knowing like what you like. You know, all waves have different speeds, and totally like Shane said, waves come in at different directions. They rights, they lefts. Some hit the bank straight, so they close out quickly. Some won't, you know, so they will run.
Exactly.
So there's so many different varieties and variables out there. Yeah. So it's all about knowing what you got in front of you, guys.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also like of the swell that's coming in plays such a big part, you know, like, and like then like reading that swell, like just knowing what's going on, having your finger on the pulse, they would say, you know, and tuning in, like checking the ocean out every day, and, you know, and then you know, okay, cool, J-Bay will be working, you know,
exactly,
or Elan's will be working like it is, you know, or something, and yeah, just I know I say it's like using tech too and stuff like that, and stuff, but yeah, so but I mean, yeah, it's huge.
Exactly. So guys, like I mean, at the end of the day, when we're talking about waves, okay, they're coming from a storm. They are totally affected by the ocean surface below us, you know, and they are also dependable on what the shape of the bay is, you know, if there's rocks, all these kind of things. But at the end of the day, waves are for you to ride, you know, to enjoy, but to understand as well. If you're not going to understand the waves, I'll tell you what, you're not going to have the most fun time in the ocean.
Not at all.
No, not for catching waves, not for paddling out, you know, not for sharing a few rides with your mates, you know. So it takes a bit of time, you know, to have an understanding of them, but
time, experience.
Yeah, you know, and also being a bit conscious, being aware, you know, knowing what kind of conditions you're going in, locating those conditions and saying, all right, I like these conditions. Let me try and go surfing during these conditions more because they were really nice for me, you know?
Exactly.
So being a bit conscious, taking a few, like, almost like trying to learn it, trying to study it, you know? And this can make your surfing much more enjoyable and it can help you send yourself straight to the right spot where you want to be.
On the point, timing, positioning, focus. Awesome. Exactly that. Thanks for that, Clanks. Appreciate it. And as you were saying, you know, it's just like knowing your wave, I guess, at the end of the day, tuning in, awareness. It's all about the awareness at the end of the day. Knowing where you are. Even if you're looking at the beach to that particular rock or tree which you've lined up from the last wave which broke on that bank, maybe you can get that one again. If you're lucky, you know. So just, you know, trial and error, I think, at the end of the day. Not being scared to try. That's a big thing with surfing, I feel. Like, if you've got a turn that you want to do, or you want to catch this wave, put yourself on the right wave, find that wave, and then be expression, it's creativity. Surf like no one's watching.
Totally, guys. And, you know, everyone is learning and surfing every single day. Like, they go out into that ocean. No one's a pro. And, like, you're going to fall. You're going to not fall, you know. Like, lots of things are going to happen. But like Shane said, it's about staying aware and being present that you're in the ocean, you know. It is like a big thing. It is moving a lot, you know. Like, lots of different things can happen to you.
Yeah.
So it does help to take a little bit of time, watch the waves a little bit.
Mind surfing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and put yourself on those waves.
Yeah, just get to the beach sometimes and just staring at the ocean is such a good thing, I think. And it's actually interesting, I find, from people I've taught who have grown up near the sea and looked at the sea and watched the sea, they immediately will be, let's call it, more understanding and better at surfing because they can understand the waves better than someone
Yeah.
who's from a landlocked place, doesn't even know what the ocean waves look like, just because of that familiarity.
Yeah.
So it takes time. It's just,
Yeah.
you can accelerate that process if you go there and you be consciously looking.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that wave, check, I see this left-hander coming, and it's like, oh yes, here's Shayna's in the pocket. I love being in the pocket. Just being like in the pocket.
You see, guys, and on top of that, look at what mind surfing does to you. It makes you stoked, man.
I'm there, I'm that red dot.
Jeez,
in
can't
that
surf,
pocket.
have a little
Right.
mind surf.
Next thing, the wave starts moving. Oh yes, here we go. Maybe I'm in the log, maybe, no, I'm in the fish.
Yeah.
Top turn, back to
Oh,
the
there.
point. This one.
Yeah.
5-10.
Fairy.
One turn, back to the pocket. Stall, another turn, boom. I can't do edge, but inside section, just like a little thing, just go for it, have fun. Why
Yeah.
not?
Try it out.
Mind surfing is so
Yeah.
good, I found, just to foresee something and then go out there and practice it. It's such a good
Yeah.
skill, I find, even through like
Yeah.
sports, I think even with your guys' sports, when you played sport and you would practice, if you could positively think that you're going to get that done, you probably would get
Yeah.
it done.
Yeah.
Versus if you were like blocking yourself to being like, oh, that shot is so hard. For me, it was kicking the rugby ball. If I could imagine that rugby ball going through the poles, it would go through those poles.
Yeah.
If I just gave it enough, literally mental strength, and it would work. Like with anything in life. If you just want to
Totally.
completely mind surf, keep mind surfing all the time.
And it will definitely get you super amped to go for a surf, that's for
The
sure.
more you put yourself in the ocean and watch the ocean, just immerse yourself in it, the better you're gonna like get it, reading it, which is ultimately at the end of the day like what you want when you're surfing. Like you want to read the ocean and like predict it and figure it out and unlock it and get that gem of the wave that makes you so stoked that you want more and more and more.
Fast.
And yeah,
Or
so yeah, you just gotta use all the tools to make
You
sure
wanna
you
come up
find
there,
that.
Totally.
Totally. Yeah, that's, mind surfing with everything, consciousness, awareness, and yeah, keep it going and don't be scared. That's at the end of the day. No fear of living, enjoy it out there. Alright, I think that was a cool chapter on waves. I really enjoyed just understanding your guys' perspective on what you thought about waves and
Yeah.
sharing mine a bit and it's relative to life and everything. We kind of took a long while to get through it. This section is cool. For me, I would love to hear anyone else who has insights on the Cape Town conditions. Of course, we're talking here from Cape Town, South Africa. Maybe there's someone listening from Port Elizabeth or from Jersey.
Ask us questions, those.
Honestly, if you're in Jersey, you can't predict the surf so good there. But if you're in Portugal or France or Germany, every place has different local conditions, of course, and different things which make up the environment and the weather patterns which come. Here in Cape Town, we're going to use this as an example for this case and share with you some things that we found useful. Tuning into the weather patterns and making decisions to go surf based on these kind of things. And I think at the end of the day, it's about understanding it, being aware to it. Watching one day the wind or the clouds, seeing the next day the same thing. Oh, maybe that's 1 + 1 = 2, kind of thing.
And like we know, guys, like the storms, the weather, they're going to have a biggest impact on our waves, And if we know the waves, we can definitely know our local conditions really well,
Definitely. And it's important for a surfer, for anyone who wants to deal with nature as a recreational activity, I guess, because it's not like going to the gym, which is going to be open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. The same thing's probably going to happen. It might be it's the same receptionist even. The ocean, there's no receptionist there waiting for you. The thing is changing every single day. It's caused by changes in our local environment, and it's, to be able to be fluid with it, I think is a much better approach than expecting to be going to this gym and having consistency, because the ocean is completely unpredictable, and I guess it's a fun game for me to play and trying to get the best surf out of that.
Oh, nice, We're totally in Mother Nature's hands.
We have no control. Literally, we just got to flow with what is given to us and
by the nature, by the ocean.
respect that.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for those waves that come sometimes, those good days, because soon after the northwest is going to come in the winter or the next week at least, and it's going to change the conditions. Like today, of course, big northwestern table view, and it's a onshore choppy, Muizenberg's probably completely offshore. So to understand the different dynamics of the beaches also, and then be able to use that in your surfing decisions, because at the end of the day, if you're surfing better waves, you're going to have a better experience surfing, you're going to have more fun, I guess, because you're surfing better waves too, and then your surfing is going to improve because you're able to be at the right place at the right time, you're surfing better waves. So it all adds up at the end of the day.
Guys, and let's be honest, I mean, like, who likes to drive to Melkbos and see that it's onshore, you know, and then like, oh, okay, cool, let me go to Muizenberg, and you know, that's like a really big mission. So
it takes time,
and it's definitely not good for the planet. That's for sure.
Surfers are quite taxing on the planet. We drive a lot, we consume a lot, and
it's like, I think destructive. I would like put it like when I was in lockdown. Like one guy said it to me. It's like, yeah, it's destructive. You know, you don't get things done. Like maybe, you know, because you just like thinking about surf, the waves, everything.
So this can put us in that right spot at the right time, in the right moment, understanding our local conditions, you know.
Like chasing it too much maybe and stuff.
I would suggest diversity and everything. Balance is key at the end of the day.
Definitely. Cool.
Some variables which, of course, I've thought of which can affect the waves which arrive to our coastline is, of course, swell, the geographic location of where we are, the wind, the tides, and of course the type of breaks, what the wave is breaking over. And I think all these variables in conjunction have a large effect on what type of wave is going to be breaking. You know,
the balance.
The balance.
All.
It's all going to work. They're all working together in a way. I guess the swell direction is coming from this. The one day it's the lower tide in the morning on this day. The conditions are changing completely all the time on these type of things. If the wind turns, the waves turn. If the tide turns, the waves also turn. Or they get smaller or they get bigger with whatever happens. And of course, if it's breaking over a sandbank, maybe around the corner it's breaking over a reef, and it's a completely different wave.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely different. One is completely hollow and barren, and the other is just a little longboard wave.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I would say then definitely with the like types of swell, like then we're getting like if there's super windy, like, and it's a huge storm, it's going to be like
choppy.
Yeah, well, it's going to be big though. No,
if
it's far out, like we said, but if it's close in and it's just windy and like, I don't know, like just messy and horrible. But it says it's big swell, but it's maybe only like maybe 20 k's out. Then it's not going to be like super big and great and clean.
For sure, and I think swell, of course, is the most important variable for us to consider, because if there's no swell, there's no waves.
Yeah.
Right, in the Mediterranean, there's no swell because, there is wind swells, but they're not able to consistently form that there's going to be waves breaking down.
It's like quality waves.
Here we have swell consistently pulsing, which gives us waves. And then when they arrive to our local coastline, there's wind and tide and type of surf break to consider. But for a base, swell is, of course, our main factor.
And where does the swell come from, guys? From those storms that are produced out to sea.
Completely out to sea there. And some storms form further out to sea, or from Cape Town at least, maybe somewhere between here and Brazil. 2,000 k's away, it's travelled such a long distance, it's had so much time to structure and organise itself to get to the coastline to break as a clean wave, versus maybe something in the Mediterranean or sometimes even in Cape Town, a storm forming 20 kilometers away, having such a short period to get to our coastline, you know, and it's so scattered on top of each other, they say normally, and that's a wind swell when it's like so on top of each other, the waves are breaking with a smaller swell period, like smaller distance between the waves.
Yeah.
And they're kind of just crashing, and it's very choppy and bumpy. Where the ground swells, and I think that's where we all want to be surfing, is just that long swell period. It's like maybe 14, even 16, 12 plus at the end of the day, and long waits between waves. Sometimes there's even longer waits. That like if it's 20 seconds, you're going to wait maybe every 10 minutes for a second.
Yeah, then it's coming through. There's like lots of waves.
And those waves will be more powerful when they come also because they're going to have more time and space to structure and organize themselves to get to the coastline as like a solid swell. versus a wind swell, which is going to be kind of chop chop.
Yeah, and especially if it's lined up with the direction, then it's just going to be so perfect. You know,
Exactly.
because it's taken so much time, and it's just like locked itself into that like point or that cranny wherever it is. You know, and it's just been like, okay, cool, and everything lines up with the tide, the wind, and you know, it's a beautiful day, and it just.
So as we were looking like there, guys, we have pretty much two different types of swell. We have ground swell, we have wind swell. Both of them are made by wind.
Both be surfed.
But ground swells, they traveling from a longer period away, from a longer distance away, and they have the time to organize themselves, to become cleaner, to become separate undulations, you know. Whereas a wind swell, shorter distance away, doesn't have the time to clean itself up, to become structured waves, structured undulations, you know. So as Shane was saying, it comes in as like wave, 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 and that translates into being a low period, you know, 8 seconds, for example. Classic wind swell, 8 seconds. Wave.
Don't be fooled by it.
One,
You see like
another wave.
you see like 4 meter swell and 8-second period, 8-second wave period. Immediately you're thinking, oh, wind swell, something's not right here, because like you can see that 4 meter swell and you'd be completely skunked by that. Yes, I'm taking my day off tomorrow. My only day off of the week, I'm gonna go take it tomorrow. And you get out there and the wind is pumping 40 knots and the waves are like 1 foot. You know, it doesn't have enough time to get to the coastline and to.
So that means the waves have just arrived with the wind,
literally.
and the wind is just pushing those waves down, destroying them. You know, you'll have the big swell and you'll have a couple of big waves here and there, but with no structure, no uniformity whatsoever. Whereas if you see 2 meter swell at 16-second period, sure, you think to yourself 2 meter, maybe that's not so big, you know. But then, guys, we really have to look at our period, you know. Our period is the distance in between waves, pretty much. Longer period, longer distance in between waves. But at the same time, we have a greater energy below the surface, you know. So when that wave does arrive to where it's going to break, that energy below the surface will send that wave straight upwards. And that will probably be like a 6-foot wave, even, you know, with a 2 meter predicted, you know. So that period has a really, really big importance on the size of the waves, the amount of the waves, and the cleanness.
Exactly. Thanks, Clint. Appreciate it. And then there you can surf anyway, any swell you like. If you like choppy waves, probably best for kiting, I guess. Use it for then. I mean, probably not even that good, but like.
If you like uncrowded waves, no, you can go surf on its onshore.
Onshore is the new offshore, exactly. And what I find so amazing in a place like Cape Town, which we have, of course, a scattered coastline, we have this peninsula which just sits out to sea. And like when I was younger, I used to just think this thing was like some big tourist attraction, you know, like it was like a whatever, it just was a big rock out there, and it was out to sea. And now I understand a bit more how much effect this peninsula has on our waves that we're getting. The peninsula effect, that this peninsula is scattered with beaches all over. They're all facing in different directions. It has an effect on every single break, especially around the peninsula side. And if the swell direction is coming from 240 degrees versus 270 degrees, one wave can work better than another. Saying much of a much, you know.
And you just got like 2 coastlines receiving swell from like 2 completely different directions, you know. So like any day, any wind, you're getting like good conditions if you actually.
Check out Muizenberg, completely a south-facing beach, south to southeast facing beach, versus Big Bay Beach, a completely west-facing beach. So any swell, you know, that's going to be coming from the west is completely going to be absorbed into the west coast and anything around here. But I mean, how on earth is it going to get around this peninsula?
Muizenberg will be tiny.
Here, Muizenberg will be miniature.
And as we know, guys, our storms are always coming from the southwest, like Shane said, towards Brazil area down there, the Atlantic. That's the general direction of our ocean current, and that's the general direction of our storms and our swell and everything. So that's where our waves are coming from 99% of the time.
Literally. Yeah, and you can see in this video here, I think it is. Okay, well, this part to the swell direction, of course, when we're determining is from where it's coming from. Like you're saying, it's coming from the southwest. And it's going toward the the
West
northeast.
Coast.
You know, it's going well in terms of the
Yeah.
in terms of the compass here. It's coming from the southwest. You know,
Yeah.
there you
To the
go.
east.
Boom, south swell coming from the south, north swell coming from the north,
Yeah.
Exactly.
southwest coming from the southwest. South
We read it the same. We read the wind, guys.
same as the wind. Simple.
Yeah.
It's just the direction of things, but it's good to understand, especially in a place like Cape Town. And, I mean, check this out, Jim. We have a classic southwest swell storm building. It's about to hit the Cape. Those are getting frothed to surf. Southwest, I think it was like a southeast wind even. The west coast is licking their lips because they know it's just going to be lying.
No, this is the west coast of Cape Town.
Here,
Anybody
here.
who's not
This is Cape
familiar
Town.
with.
Look at that
See.
front coming in. Wow.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Check it this out, Jim.
So-
Swell, 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 swell. And it's all getting swell here. But if you look at a place like Muizenberg, no swell. Funny, eh? Like,
Yeah.
the swell's not really able to wrap in there. Only once it really picks up can kind of
Yeah,
filter through.
once it's like, I mean, let's say
Once
wrap
it has
around,
enough energy
Energy
to send a
wrap
few.
around,
you know,
and
pulses
Exactly.
around the corner.
Still, like, all that, look at that, all swell hitting on the west coast. And
This is a big swell though, let's be like
Yeah.
a big southwest, so now it has the ability to get around to Muizenberg,
it's
whereas
just
like,
wrapping in here
if
now.
it's maybe 2 meters southwest, you know, then it's not getting in big at Muizenberg, whereas this is huge, so we see it get in there.
Yeah, you see it start to filter in now, but there's the big last groundswell pass.
Boom.
And so look at that, guys. Very clear example. You know, you see the swell. Maybe it was 3 meters in that like kind of pinkish zone. Who knows? Maybe 3, maybe 4 meters.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, whoa, the red zone came, and that made it about a 5-6 meter swell. And look what happened, a little bit more energy,
Pulse.
and there we go. It starts to wrap a little bit around that peninsula.
Exactly that. And it's just interesting to understand, I think, that with the winds and the swells, that peninsula is so important in determining the type of waves we're going to get.
Yeah. I mean,
From being a good block of swell, maybe to have good, like, smaller waves.
Yeah.
That's why I think it has such a long, small wave.
yeah.
One, because the continental shelf is so long, and that swell is always deflecting around the peninsula.
Yeah. Yeah. It's taking time to get in there all the time, you know, it's always like getting a bit of a decreased swell size, you know.
Just quickly, guys, before we jump to wind, just so a great point to end off on there is when you see your swell, like you want to know which direction the beaches that you mostly surf is facing at, you know? So if your beach direction is facing very west, you know that it's probably going to pick up quite a lot of swell. Whereas if your local beach is Muizenberg, you know that for Muizenberg to be working, you need quite a big swell or more southerly, for example, for the waves to get in there.
Completely.
So very, very, very important to understand your local conditions,
Your
understand
orientation of the beach.
exactly.
Which
Yeah,
direction your
the-
beach is facing at.
The location where it is, like west coast,
Is
east
there a
coast.
cliff next to me also to consider? The geographic location, what affects the waves in this spot? Like at
Yeah.
the bay in Morocco, it's got this massive cliff. So pretty much all wind from, I think it is like the north, it's got from the north all the way to like the northeast, east, southeast, south is completely blocked by that little cliff. And it can be pumping wind on top of the hill. You get down there, it's breathless.
Yeah.
Little protected by the cliff, the swells wrapping in around the bend. Life's good.
Yeah.
Ginormous cliff.
So guys, you
Yeah,
can see
that
there's
beach is facing one direction, that beach is facing one direction,
yeah.
this is facing another direction. That would be really hard to get swell, because I mean, how on earth would any swell kind of
You can even see in that picture there, like,
race around here?
look at that swell going
Pulsing.
into the west coast there, whereas
Literally.
on the other
You see
side,
that swell there?
There's
Complete
nice.
lake, eh?
it's like a lake, it's like clean, nothing in there
Inside.
yet, you know, or it's not gonna get in there.
Hard to get into there.
Yeah.
So I mean, essentially, we are blessed living in the Cape. We have
Such
West
diverse
Coast
conditions.
and almost an East Coast.
And all
you know.
winds and
So we've got surf 365 days of the year, guys.
literally.
So understanding your local
365.
conditions, understanding those weather reports and those surf reports is going to make life really, really nice
So
for
you want
you.
to make good
Yeah.
decisions to surf good waves.
Let us know when where you're surfing on this big swell though.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that'll be
Secret
interesting,
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting to know if anybody's
Yeah.
planning to go anywhere.
It is classic. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, for me, that when I started to understand which direction my beaches are facing, then I understood how the wind is going to affect this and how the swell is going to
Yeah.
affect this wave.
I think even it's important to like wherever you are, like you just gotta know. Like I found where north is, you know, like
Have
you know where
points.
does like as soon as you stand in front of that beach or that surf spot, like where's north, and you like point there, and then you know, okay, cool. Where does the wind need to come from? Like, okay, there, like, and then you know, okay, cool, that's offshore. Like,
There we go.
that's
That
good.
gets us into the wind.
There
Eh?
we go, completely. And then we're going to understand, you know, same thing as we understand now, the direction in which your beach is facing is going to determine which sort of wind is going to be good or
Yeah.
bad, of course. You know?
Like, obviously, you get like offshore wind.
Offshore wind, onshore wind, cross-shore wind.
Yeah.
Offshore, of course, is bloody awesome because it's blowing from the land to the sea and it's sort of grooming the wave. It's holding the wave up, making it really nice for it to kind of, you know, hold up in a nice curl, maybe opening up a section even if it's hollow. It's good to have a bit of wind to surf, but not too much. If it's going over 20 knots, it's not that pleasant to surf. Onshore is a bit more, let's call it
Tricky, I would say,
Tricky,
to surf. Eh?
because
Yeah.
it has more impact on the surface conditions.
Yeah.
Like a 10 knot onshore wind can completely add a chop in the wave because it's just got more bump on it. The waves are like kind of bumping into each other.
Yeah, where like onshore guys blowing from the land, from the ocean to the land.
So on.
So essentially, as surfers, I mean, we're not really liking onshore a whole lot because what it's doing is pushing sections down, you know, and it's making our waves close out. Whereas offshore is making our waves peel nicely, you know, slow, holding them up a little bit for us, you know,
Exactly.
giving us a little bit of a
Grooming
crisp.
them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's just grooming the face of
Nice
the wave.
word, yeah.
And of course, cross shore, just going completely across your shore. Like for here, southerly wind in Cape Town is so horrid because it just blows across the bays.
And as we know, guys, what makes waves? Wind. So when we have a cross-shore wind, we're gonna have those little small waves into us all the time,
It's the
right?
primary swell.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think, and like wind is such a blessing in disguise. You know, we like, damn, I don't want wind when it's in my local environment, but we want wind far to sea, so that
Exactly.
sends us waves. And to just have, I guess it's got a good yin and a yang at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and then guys, we also get no wind as well, eh?
oh, I like that.
Phew, that's a blissful day,
That's bloody epic, eh?
eh? Yeah.
I like no wind also, and of course in Cape Town, we're pretty well known for the wind, bloody windy city sometimes. I mean, kites come flocking in here in the summer. And in Cape Town, we have a southeast trade wind, which just from around November till end of April, our predominant trade wind is the southeast, and then it turns to the northwest, which of course comes with the winter, the bigger storms, the rain. It comes from the north down, brings in colder temperatures too, even from the berg winds that we get from our mountains with the snow, and it gets really cold sometimes. And this also has a big effect on the water temperature too, this change in season and change in winds. That
Changing
southeast in
currents.
Cape Town, I mean, it's such a funny thing that most people think surfing in winter is colder than in summer. But
Yeah.
I have way more warmer surfs in the winter because the water's warmer. And I mean, it makes sense in a way if you think about the concept of upwelling, when the summer, it's a strong southeast trade wind that's consistently blowing anything that arrives in this bay out to sea.
Offshore winds every day,
Offshore
guys.
winds, literally, most days. Southeast is blowing. There's no time for warm water to kind of settle. If you imagine if you're just shining a hot light on a glass of water, that water is consistently moving. It's not able to settle and kind of heat up. Whereas in the winter, it's blowing northwest, everything into the bay, traps like a little bathtub, you know. Now the sun can just heat that water up because it's not really moving. It's just like stagnant, just like bang, keeps it warm up. And
The
back.
currents definitely change, you know.
I mean, guys, that's a really cool little topic. I mean, that's very interesting. I mean, why we have such cold water in the summer. Cold water is much more dense. So imagine that offshore wind blowing every single day. That's blowing our warm water away from us. That's surface water. And that cold water is just coming in that phenomenon that Shane calls upwelling.
Yeah.
coming from the bottom, and then right close to our shoreline, surfacing there, just for us to go for a little dip into.
But interesting enough, I think with the upwelling it brings more nutrients too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And in places sometimes the upwelling there's let's call it an error in the pH where there's too many squid or like little krill which kind of block photosynthesis and things when the red tide occurs. So like an earliner know the upwelling comes and then the algae forms on top of the water surface and doesn't let light come down to the bottom. And then obviously all the coral and the life dies there. There's creatine to get up, there's no oxygen coming.
Big algal bloom forms, sucks all the oxygen out the water, and all the
Yeah.
But so basically, guys, wind is going to have a really, really big impact on our waves, as well as our water temperature. You know, and I mean, as well, also, if you're a guy maybe going for aerial maneuvers, sheesh, you could absolutely love onshore, you know. But also, if you're learning to surf, for example, onshores might not be the best conditions to go out in, you know, because it's going to be closing out a lot. It's going to be very messy, you know. Your waves aren't going to be very clean and structured. So understanding the wind and your geographical position, very, very important to choosing the right conditions to go surfing for you.
Completely. Oh, this is a cool one. Tide, what an interesting little. How does this even happen? With the moon and the sun and the earth all somehow connected to gravitational forces. When the moon is fuller, that's a stronger gravitational force versus when it's not full. It has, but also in the spring, in the new moon, there's still a spring tide. Of course, tide is affected by the moon technically.
100%.
Lower tides, the moon is, I think, closer to the earth. It's not as strong gravitational pull. Where the high tide, the moon is further, it's pulling more with gravity, and the tide is pushing higher. I believe that's how it works. And of course, when the moon is fuller, it has a concept called spring tides, which is of course when you have very high tides and very low tides. There's a big difference in the two.
Yeah.
And that obviously with spring tides we normally get a lot bigger swell, I find.
Because I mean, guys, essentially, if the water's moving more, you're gonna have more energy coming towards you.
Literally,
it makes total sense.
And if the moon is pulling stronger for say a week longer than the full moon period, during normally those periods, I find there to be extreme weather conditions because of course there's something else which is affecting the ocean. There's something else which is pulling water, making effect, making change. And we see the differential coming every time there's a full moon or spring tide. The tide pushes up, there's a lot stronger water pushing. When it's pulling back, it's a lot stronger, so the currents are normally occurring because there's a lot more going forwards and backwards. Motion is a lot stronger in effect.
Yeah.
Versus a neap tide, which is in this small little differences between low tide and high tide. It's kind of just like low tide is at maybe like 0.2 meters and high tide is at 0.4 meters. Not that much of a difference at all. And then the conditions may be a bit safer. But that's hard to say because it will still change with the swell.
So guys, when Shane's actually saying like big difference in change of tide, essentially what he's saying is when we have a low tide means that the ocean is quite far back, you know, it's on our lowest point of the beach, okay?
Beach to walk on.
It's called your low tide mark, you know, and then what you do when you get a high tide, your high water mark is where the highest point that the waves are going to reach on the beach, you know. So when he's talking about a difference between the low tide and the high tide in meters, he's talking about the difference between where that low water mark is and that high water mark is. So in a neap tide, where they say that you're not going to have a big difference in those meters, your low water mark and your high water mark are going to be quite near to each other. Whereas in a spring tide, your low water mark is going to be quite far down the beach, and your high water mark is going to be quite high up the beach.
Completely.
So you're going to have a big difference in where they end up, you know, and that will resolve in a lot of energy coming towards or sucking away from the beach in your spring tides.
For sure.
Whereas a neap tide, you won't have as much energy. There won't be as much movement in the ocean, you know. This is very important to understand because tides don't only play effect on high or low, they play a big effect on the way that our waves are going to break because they're going to put more water over the bank of the where we're surfing.
Literally. And when there's lower tide, it's shallower water on the bank. maybe the waves are a bit more hollow. Where if it's higher tide, there's more water on the bank, the waves are a bit more phlegm, a bit more weaker, because it's got more kind of, I guess, room from the surface area of the ocean to the wave, the swell coming past. And I think with high tide, of course, we see in most places and different waves, the waves will change. It will become a bit more easy to ride because it's not so hollow versus breaking on that low where it's like crunching on the reef.
Yeah.
Knee deep, literally like hectic low tide. And then it plays a big effect, I think, in the waves that we're going to be riding.
Exactly, guys. So like, have a look. You know, go down to the beach next time. You know, go down there on high tide, full high tide. Look what the waves break like. You know, they generally tend to crumble a little bit more. Generally, I mean, different beaches are all different. You know, but you have a bit more water over the ocean floor. So, and on a low tide, you have less water over the ocean floor. Your sandbank, your reef break, whatever you're surfing over is more exposed. So the waves are probably gonna and break quicker, you know. Maybe close out more, maybe barrel a bit more, but they're probably gonna be quicker, you know.
Yeah, completely. And then of course at the different beaches, the tides have a bigger effect too. I think in beach breaks generally, I say like low to mid tides are better, like from the dropping tide to the pushing tide, versus where it's like on maybe some reefs I like to surf on the higher tide because it's got a bit more water. Maybe I'm scared of the rocks, I don't know. But the low tides I find maybe closing out a bit more at some spots because it's just breaking too fast into the sand. Versus when it has a bit more water, it just kind of gives it a bit more support, a bit more hold to keep the wave up, keep it open, keep it riding.
They're thinking like change it, I believe, with the high tide though, like not being as hollow, you know. Also, when it's low tide, then we like talking about it being breaking. So like, I think it's always more hollow.
Exactly, guys.
Even when it's like a spilling wave and it's low tide, you know, it's gonna have a little bit more like I don't know, like hollowness to it and like cylindrical, like. You know, whereas the high tide, more water would just like.
For sure.
And that obviously brings us to our type of surf break that we're having, you know. I mean, if we have a beach break, we're going to have a wave where maybe the beach and it runs out to a triangle. And on the low tide, there might not even be water over that sandbank, you know. And on the high tide, that water might come right over that sandbank and it could be absolutely perfect for that beach break, you know. So that's why the type of surf break that you're surfing has a very big effect by tide, but also it depends on what the conditions are doing at that moment, you know.
For sure. And I think for beach breaks, you normally get different type of waves than you get to point breaks. And that's got to do again with your geographic surrounding, your location where you are. Here you see at points a big cliff or a big headland sticking out to sea. There's no other way for the swell to wrap into the bay.
Yeah.
Whereas if maybe this cliff was further out, it wouldn't allow the swell in. But here, the waves have no other choice but to make these perfect little point breaks running down the line. Because of the shelf that's sitting on the little reef that's out there, this cliff blocks the wind. It's all playing an effect in determining the type of wave that gets there.
Yeah.
Whereas on this beach break, for instance, you're going to get waves breaking to the left and the right. You know, just because maybe it's shaped at that angle, the sand is settling in that point. And at beach breaks, the sand is always moving. Where a reef, of course, the reef is set. Like on a point break, we're mainly dealing with reefs or rocky points at least. And those rocks are set. They kind of concrete into the sand. Maybe after years it will move a bit, but not much. Where the sandbanks, which is kind of forming where the waves break on beach breaks, are consistently moving. If you're surfing dunes or tube wave, that sandbar moves. And it kind of comes to the swell. Maybe after this big swell, a lot of sandbanks will be washed out now.
Yeah.
Versus now when there's a calm period of a week of small waves, that sand can settle and settle and settle and build and build and build, forming a sandbar, which is then going to obviously create waves to break over.
So, I mean, essentially, guys, we got quite a few different types of surf breaks. We have beach breaks, reef breaks, point breaks, river mouths, yeah.
There's one here,
like what else? I mean, there's also like a rocky point break, sand piers, yeah.
All natural effects. What causes the wave to change?
There's like some reef breaks that are mixed with sand.
Just like completely breaking on a slab. You know, it's just literally a square block. It just hits the thing, boop, barrel time. That's the time.
So our type of wave is totally determined by the ocean floor. What we have Exactly, bathymetry.
Bathymetry.
What we have beneath us, guys.
Type
There we
it
go.
in.
In that top one,
Bathymetry.
there's a
Type it in
full-on
Bathymetry.
rock shelf
Slab.
below us, and it's coming from very deep to very shallow all of a sudden. And there we go. We get a super hollow, heavy wave that just throws in 1 or 2 seconds. You know, it just goes from this undulation to this woof, big hollow one throwing
Woof.
quickly.
Classic, eh?
Whereas a beach
river
break,
banks, like
oh yeah,
this these river breaks, like river mouths, are like really interesting because of course you got a river which is moving water the whole time, and there's a constant flow from like when the river opens and closes from high to low tide. Water moves out, moves sand, comes back, and moves sand, and after a while, if it's not, maybe if the river's not flowing for say a week or so, that sand can just settle there sometimes. You can have a little island forming. Then when the swell comes again, it can just form beautiful little points because it's just kind of corroding into that sandbar every day, just wave after wave, pushing it down. And it's so epic to surf river mouths. I find sometimes, like in some of the Eastern Cape spots we have here, just sets a little sandbar point, just like rolling in here.
An example of how to pushing low tide can affect certain spots, or example of spots that work well and pushing low. That's
Dropping
right.
low, there's pushing low.
Pushing low.
Yeah.
We would say like dropping low more. Right?
Yeah,
I would say
I
like
dropping, depending on the spot.
like pushing from low tide. You're asking that. Then like I don't know. Yeah, it depends. I mean, then on the bank, I would say. You know.
Well, I mean, essentially, if you're going towards low tide, normally what's going to happen is your swell is going to die down a bit
Drop, settle.
because the energy is going back out, you know, the ocean's not pushing in and stuff like that. So your low tide, you'll probably have longer waits in between the waves, for example. But at the same time, you'll also be getting probably hollower waves because the ocean will be sucking out. At the same time as sucking out, it'll also be removing water from that bank, you know, so it'll be getting shallower over time. So if you're on a beach break, for example, or even a reef break, a pushing low might equal less waves, but hollower faster, for example, you know. Whereas on when it's coming up towards a high tide, you will get probably a lot more waves, you know. But
pushing.
Exactly, you'll get more waves, more pulsing. But at the same time, the waves will go from hollower to less hollower because you'll have more water over the surface of that reef or over that sandbank, you know.
And just for interest's sake, also from low tide to high tide, it's a period of 6 hours close about. We didn't mention that before, but that, you know, of course, from 9 o'clock, you've got 6 hours until you get to the high tide, which is coming on. Then after that's going back down to the low tide. The tide is completely changing, and every day goes 1 hour later. 1 hour later. So if it's low tide today at 9, tomorrow low tide is going to be maybe 9:45, 9:50, 10 o'clock. High tide gets pushed 1 hour later, 6 hours every time like that. 3 o'clock, and it just moves. It kind of just shifts from day to day as we go along.
Yeah, like obviously
pushing
slip at
tide,
6 hours.
6
I
hour
would say,
differential, close about exactly, and it's very effective on the swell type. I think, you know, swell makes a big effect on what type of waves we're going to see, as we've discussed quite in depth now.
Swell, wind, all of these things, and especially the ocean floor.
And all those things affect the waves, technically, at the end of the day. All our local conditions, all the swells coming from far away and are not local conditions, they all have a role in determining the type of waves we see. That's why every wave is such a miracle, because there's so many dependent factors to make it beautiful work. And it just comes every time, unconditional, back and forth. Every time. If you miss this wave, it's cool, there's going to be another wave to come. You know, it's not like it's going to be the last one ever. And that's, I think, what a lot of surfers sometimes we forget in our life, is that this is the last wave, I'm so big from this thing, and if it's gone, it's gone. But there's abundance, there's more waves to come, for sure.
Yeah.
Always a couple more, eh?
And I think just to, like, in our last section of this, just to kind of wrap up this understanding and, you know, like more experience now on understanding the ocean better, knowing the language better of the ocean, what affects these waves, what affects a hollow wave versus a spilling wave because of the tide, for instance. And we want to use this now in your surfing decisions, I believe. Finding the best waves for you. If you want to surf longboard waves, then you know what conditions you're looking for. If you want to surf hollow, heavy waves, you know where to go and what conditions to look for that specific spot.
Yeah, what conditions, what type of beaches, what type of setups.
And you have the understanding and the awareness of all the natural elements, and now you can apply this in predicting the surf. Instead of, I think there's a large new surf culture which has just come into the sport or the lifestyle, with an intention of, I can just go surfing when it says 5 stars on Magic Seaweed. And then they get upset that, they have expectations, they get upset because they're like, oh man, the forecast's not working, whatever. But that's their thing, I guess, at the end of the day. But I think there's a fine line between understanding, using a balance of local observations and the forecast to help you predict where to go surfing. And to use a balance of both, I think, is best. Not to focus just on the technology, because that makes a lot of errors.
As with anything in life, guys, I mean, the most easy way is to rely on yourself.
Convenience. Yeah, exactly.
Rely on yourself, understand what is good at your local spot, understand what conditions are really nice for your local spot, what you like as well, and take time to learn this, take time to go to the beach and say, hey, okay, today is 2 meters at 12 seconds, southeast winds. Sure, the waves were lovely for me today. Maybe I want to go surfing most of the time when it's like these kind of conditions,
Completely.
Oh, let me have a look at the tide. Cool, it was mid-tide. Looks pretty good here, So, take these kind of notes down, mental notes. I mean, if you want to, you can have a book. It's quite fun. I've done it before. I've written a book, and every time I go surfing, little surf journal, and it really is a fun little game, and it'll keep you stoked and alive to go surfing.
Find the best waves.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we're going to use these technologies. There's so many out there now. And at the end of the day, they're all kind of saying the same information, I believe. And I think as a surfer or any kite surfer, you use this technology to your advantage. Use something which is easy to use, but most importantly, gives you the accurate information that you're looking for. Don't use something just because it says 5 stars every day of the week and go disappoint yourself for that. I don't say do's and don'ts, but understand that there are forecasts which, these forecast platforms, they get information from buoys which are maybe far out to sea. The swell hits these buoys, it sends a signal to a computer on the land, which then categorizes and organizes information to post as a blog thing. And there's areas,
average.
There's a weighted average and everything, and there's a lot of areas which could go wrong. They're not depending on the day before, they're not depending on the swell direction all the time. It's based on certain categories which are plugged in by a human to determine what's 5 stars or what's 4 stars, for instance. At the end of the day, my choice and strategy is choosing something which is easy to use and it gives me the best information. And for me, Wind Guru does this pretty well, and it gives, I think, a fairly accurate thing. I use a combination of both sometimes.
Yeah.
I use Wind Guru and Wind Finder and kind of use both to my advantage when I can. All of them if you need to at the end of the day. And I think when you start to use this to start making decisions, you need to start knowing how to use the technology, of course, and you have a combination of that with your on-the-ground experience and knowledge.
And keeping an eye on the ocean.
Watching, understanding that this day was onshore, so tomorrow is going to be choppy, for instance.
Yeah.
I think to start, of course, you need to know the tech, find your surf location, Most of the things have a little search bar, which you can add in where you want to surf. If you can't find that exact spot, find somewhere close by, probably with the same aspect, with the same direction of the beach facing. Quite a simple task to do it through. Next up, kind of find the days that you want to go surf. Here they'll normally have a date category, a calendar set in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe now at Sunday you're trying to make a decision what days you can take off. It helps to know when's the best to go surf. You don't want to go take a day off and get bad surf, and you're like, oh, what a waste. And the day you're working, it's bloody cooking surf. It's the worst thing to do. So you be strategic in how you want to surf and get the best ways if you can.
Also Friday.
Friday. So let's make a decision between Tuesday and Friday.
Monday.
Between Tuesday and Friday, we're going to make a decision where to surf.
Monday.
So Tuesday. Well now we start investigating the data.
Yeah, it's Monday.
So we start investigating this data. What beach? What direction is my beach facing? What swell does this beach work on best? What tide does this beach on work? What wind is best for this beach? And now you start factoring this into your decision making based on this technology. We use these swell variables on the left here. You got your wind, you got your swell, and of course all these things are telling different information. This is a bigger swell. This is a smaller swell. It's coming from the southeast. This is coming from the southwest. That's the wind here on the top lines, the swell here on the bottoms. Okay, the swell period, as we mentioned, the bigger the swell period is often better.
Yeah.
A bit more ground swell, a bit more space and
You
organization.
see in the start there, it's quite high, and then it drops off a little
It's a
bit.
building swell. It's going down through the week. So we're
Yeah.
investigating this data. Well, how can we use this to add to our understanding and knowledge of the surf? Lastly, predicting the surf. Okay, we understand it now. We can acknowledge where the things are, where the days, and what tide and swell we're looking at. Now we're
Like
making
wind's
some
good.
decisions. We're checking Tuesday here. Swell for Tuesday, we see it's big swell. Purple's often big, and the swell obviously says it's big there. A large swell period, okay, and the swell is coming from the southwest. Okay, Big Bear knows a west facing beach, so it's going to be exposed to the southwest.
Yeah.
Muizenberg probably
Southern.
smaller. Now we're talking about Friday. The swell here we see drop significantly. Okay, it's still southwest. The period is now 13 seconds, a bit less. Probably good surf. Okay,
Really good.
based on swell, I think it'll be too big on the Tuesday to surf. That big swell wouldn't be able to handle this west coast.
No.
Doesn't handle that much swell. But here on this Friday, we can
Some
see it's. This is a pretty, for me, familiar swell to see and a good swell to surf on. Predicting the surf and then basing on the wind. On Tuesday, we see it's a really strong wind. I think it says here about 24 knots. I mean, that's absolutely pumping. South
Kite is a
wind.
loving life.
Kite is a Stoked. Get out there, sending it to the
Yeah.
Mars. Those are going to be frothing for these conditions. Where our surfers are maybe more like, sheesh, like that's way too strong to surf in.
Yeah. Yeah. Way too.
Where we see on Friday, a light
Yeah.
wind, epic
Nice.
for conditions. East wind, we
Straight
know
offshore.
west facing beach, straight offshore, lacquer, long period between the swell. Perfect little southwest, probably a great day for surfing on that Friday. So already based on the swell and the wind, we know
Looking
Friday is going to be a good day. Friday looks pretty good. Then lastly, the tide. And we know that with Big Bay, we want to surf closer to the lower tides because it's a beach break. It has an
Yeah.
effect on that.
It's like mid tide, I would
Mid-tide,
say.
I
You
would
know?
say. So let's say 3 hours or 2 hours from 5:38 in the morning. We're looking around 8 o'clock is a good time to go surf.
Yeah.
And then again in the evening around say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock is going to be like.
It's obviously going to be such a nice day because there's no wind.
no wind.
So the evening's going to be like
Exactly.
evening glass off.
So
Yeah,
a little
that'd
surf in
probably
the
be mine.
morning, a little surf in the evening. We're good to glow. Eh? I reckon that's a great time to go surf. Yeah, and at the end of the day, choosing those right waves to go surf,
Only on a bomb.
choosing the right days to go surf completely depicts on our experience. And if
Yeah.
we get the right waves, we get the right conditions, it's a lot more fun, it's a great time out there. And yeah, officially infected by the Stoke sometimes.
Yeah, I
You see
mean,
the
it's so
kids,
beautiful to
so
share it with people too. Like,
for sure.
yeah, you get to do that. Look at that look. Oh,
Oh,
Joanna.
That's
Joanna.
Ryan. That's Ryan.
Uh,
It looks like Johnny there.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a great lifestyle to share and happiness. So at the end of the day, I think it's epic to be out there with many people, taking them from scary situations to trusting something completely
Yeah.
unpredictable.
Enjoying it and learning how to predict it, read it.
For sure. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, we say thank you, for teaching us and sharing with us such a beautiful place to learn lessons of where challenge is actually growth, and where positioning is actually a choice, it's a consciousness, and patience is really rewarded. Waiting for that wave, you're going to get the best one. And then, of course, when you're timing it, you're surfing when the conditions are right, you're standing up when it's the right time. It's that's consciousness, that's being present.
Yeah, exactly. Not really anything in your mind. You're just surfing and you're just letting it flow.
Let go, no control. We're just having to choose what we need to do. At the end of the
bringing
day.
it back to that first quote of
Exactly.
riding the universe,
Completely.
the wave of the universe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not easy to do this. I think
Completely.
to ride the wave perfectly or
Yeah.
ride the wave of the universe perfectly.
Or
But
to accept that there's going to be bad and good.
yeah, but you just gotta enjoy the ride and
Respect it,
it for what it is, and take your time to be up and down and go for that surf, and actually take the time not to go for that surf maybe, or just
Whatever you feels right at that time. And to respect, not to fear. I think fear is a very big thing that we all grow up with, and choosing to break down fears and release them instead of being blocked by them. I think it's a great way to go through it, respecting it, working on it to overcome it, and mindset, focusing on what can go right versus what can go wrong. If you're thinking we're going to stand up, I'm going to make this wave and get the best battle of my life, versus if I'm going to be thinking already, I'm going to wipe out, you're already thinking nosedive, on the head,
you're going to go down.
Stitches Hospital, you're going to attract that to you. So I think it's what your mindset is focusing on. It's a big thing in surfing, visualizing where you can get to,
the power of the mind
focusing
is...
on one, I can do this, I can understand this, I can take this to the next step.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're going to fall sometimes, but there's always going to be another wave to catch, I believe. And that's what's so awesome about surfing. It's completely abundant. It doesn't end.
The waves don't stop. They might be small, they might be big, it might be windy, choppy, stuff, but they don't stop.
For sure. And that's the mindset that we believe, or I believe in at least. And it's something which takes us a long way. And I think it's a great lifestyle to live by. I think you understand, you can relate that into the ocean to the universe, and to the universe to the ocean. It's a great way to connect. I think.
Yeah, it's special.
And it's, from here, thanks to everyone that was here and listening. And it's been epic to have Daza and Clanks and Ollie and M and whoever was here. It's been cool. Whoever's gonna be here after this is gonna be cool also. So shocker for you.
Thank you for joining.
See us in Cape Town. We are happy to share any surfing vibes, and come catch a wave with us.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
Shuckers.
Big shuckers. Stay stoked and enjoy it. Much love, bro.
Yep. Oh, soon.
We just need to figure out to end the live here.
We need to figure this bit out now.
I've done this before, but...
Okay. Boom.
Phew!
Okay, where do we
Hope you all enjoyed.
end?